We are on pace to hitting 200k before the end of this year, and so if you are new to the channel, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the bell notifications. It would be greatly appreciated, and I'm thankful for every single one of you. But without further ado, here's the video. The human character. What does it mean to be a human character, and what does it mean to be human? What are the characteristics and intrinsic values of us as human beings that we end up flocking to these characters like moths to a flame? Now, I won't get too much into humanity's existence, as I think that's a question that very much tackles worldviews and perspectives, and that's not really what this video is about. But in this video, I really want to look at the core components of what makes up a human character and what makes them so intriguing. So I think the first and obvious point to get out of the way is relatability. Relatability is a game changer. Relatability can often take a series that might be a 7 out of 10 for you to a 10 out of 10 just because of the fact that you're able to relate to the characters so much. I know this seems like a pretty surface level analysis, however, it's something that I think is worth pointing out, especially for the start of this video. You see, there are different types of characters and different ways that we enjoy these characters. For instance, characters like Johan from Monster or Sinbad from Magi are not characters I can say I relate to, especially due to the actions that they commit. However, I admire how they're written. And when you look at the way that we kind of relate and feel towards certain characters within the stories, I think that can somewhat show a little bit of a reflection of how we relate to certain people in real life. We have our idols, we have people that we look up to and strive to be, and then we have our friends who we relate to due to experiences that we share. Obviously, friendship cannot just be condensed to that, but you get the point. So right off the bat, relatability is really what makes not only all characters in general appealing to a person, but the human character so appealing. But now comes the next question. What is relatable, and why is it relatable? There's a few words I'm going to really make the main focus of these points, and for the first point here, or technically the second in this video, I want to direct you to the word struggle. I think this is one we can all agree on. Again, regardless of whatever worldview you have, humanity's existence has been about struggling, enduring, surviving, overcoming, innovating. The reason why we make inventions is to make our life easier so we don't have to struggle as much. The reason we forge roads and paths, the reason why we create clothing, almost everything that's made is for human convenience so that life can be a little easier and we can provide more for the next generation. And that's truly what makes a lot of these characters so darn relatable. Obviously, I have to look towards Guts from Berserk, whose nickname is the Struggler. His entire story is about him going through this dark and evil world that has done nothing but keep on pushing him down. We see how his character is constantly being strengthened through this struggle, and just like is within life, as struggle can either make or break a person, conflict within a story can either make or break its characters. Conflict is what really leads to the rising actions. Conflict is what creates tension and progression within a story, whether that's the protagonist defeating the antagonist or the protagonist simply training to accomplish another goal. The more your character struggles within its story, the more conflict there will be, and I think those moments of conflict is what really pulls in the audience to want to pay attention to what happens. Therefore, the climax seems more grand when it does happen. Now, that doesn't mean your character has to have the most miserable thing ever in order to be a good one, but if you look throughout, the majority of the characters that we love and respect is because they fought for what they have. They've been thrown in these moments of conflict, whether it be physical, spiritual, mental, and they've had to rise above it and reach a new level, whether that be in a new form of power or in a new type of revelation and conviction that only pushes this character even further. And you see, sometimes that's what it is. Yes, a character could do this and it would be the easy thing to do, but throw this character in some sort of moral dilemma and now create a struggle within this character's heart and mind that makes every situation they're in a severe choice. Now let me direct you to Batman. Batman is one of the most highly selling, popular superheroes ever, and I think a large majority of that has to do with his dark appearance. He's very different from Spider-Man and Superman. And that's no knock towards Spider-Man and Superman. I love both those heroes. And honestly, you could say part of this does apply to Superman and any superhero in existence. But it's really made a main focus with Batman. Batman's always given the moral dilemma to kill or to continue on his path of righteousness. Due to the trauma that Batman endured as a child, he no longer wants to become the thing that he's sworn to stop. He could have killed the Joker. I mean, after Joker killed his second Robin, you think Batman didn't want to? Batman has many times expressed his desire and his want to kill the Joker, but he makes the difficult decision not to. And that struggle is something that we see throughout his character constantly. And I think that honestly kind of attracts us as people in a way, because many times I think we take the easy choice and then pretend like it was the only one, when in reality there was another option available. We just weren't willing to sacrifice enough to maintain that one. And this right here is what ties into my second and third point. And honestly, this isn't really a linear point, just kind of see this as a web that all kind of interconnects. And so part of that is giving them choice, or well, the concept of choice. Part of the existential question with us as people, and again, even though I said I didn't want to get into worldview, if you look throughout history, a large majority of the fights and wars that take place is usually for some sort of strive of power. And I think the reason we as people desire power is so that we have more of an ability to choose what we want. We want freedom. That's why we like the idea of free will. The ability to choose and be able to do whatever we want without anybody telling us. Deep down, we as people, I think, crave that almost more than anything. The freedom to choose and to be able to do what we want without consequences. So when you give the character choice, or the idea of choice, now you give them all of these type of dilemmas and decisions that kind of show all of the different emotions within them as a person. You see, when you're trying to write a human character, and some of the best human characters written, they're not really easily defined by just one emotion. Look at Batman, look at Guts, look at any other human character you want to say is out there. And the really good ones are not just solely definable by one character trait. Are there a few you could try and group them into? Yes, but it would still serve as a massive understatement. But if you give this character the idea of choice, this struggle against some sort of fate or stronger entity, then you get to see all of the emotions in that character. You get to see their anger, their sadness, their hope, their happiness, their despair, their love, their hatred. And this is what I meant that this all kind of interconnects like a web, as I think all of these components kind of need each other to work. Because writing a human character is simple, but it isn't. Because the idea is you want to represent the struggles of humanity, but you don't just want to condense that struggle into one thing. If you're truly trying to go for a really human character, the most relatable thing is that they're able to experience every emotion out there. Throughout our life as people, we don't just experience one emotion. We experience almost every emotion on the spectrum throughout our lifetime. And this kind of leads into another point, like I said, they all kind of interconnect now, and that's the idea of contrast and why I think I'm very big on it. Because like I said earlier, you need to give your character the moment of choice and the moment of conflict, right? You need to give them dilemmas, but you also need to give them moments of reflection, moments where we can really see what the character is thinking. We need light moments to contrast the dark. If you constantly have dark moments, then it's kind of unrealistic and it wouldn't be befitting to see the happier emotions within this character. There needs to be moments of good and bad, and this is where I think the idea of imperfection really plays into this. Just like struggling and enduring is one of the key things that I think defines humanity's entire existence, so does imperfection. In fact, you could definitely say the struggles of humanity is due to the imperfections of humanity. Greed, hatred, lust, selfishness, etc., etc., etc. Now I want you to kind of really sit and imagine your human character. Think about your favorite human characters. I really want you to pay attention not only to all of the good things they've done, but really pay attention to some of the actions they've committed that are very morally questionable. Moments where they've had lapses of judgment, moments where they let their own imperfections show, despite them being the protagonist or hero of the story. Those moments where you see and you think, is our protagonist even that different from the force that he's fighting? Why is it that despite the fact that he's messed up like this, I'm still able to support this character? And I think this is where we get into imperfections and the dark aspect of the human character. You see, we as people make mistakes, and if you write a human character within a story, I think the smart thing to do is to occasionally have them mess up. It's just what we do as people. I don't think any of us can say we've gone an entire week without messing something up. However, on a more serious note, on some of the more difficult trials in your life, and in the more difficult trials this human character will go through in your life, or has gone through, depending on whether you're thinking of writing a human character or thinking of analyzing a human character. This is what I think really drives it home, is they have their imperfections. They've had moments where they've messed up, just like we've had moments where we've messed up. Depending on what it is they messed up on, there are certain consequences to that, yes. However, in the realm of fiction, it's a little different. But I think the major thing is here is that they've messed up, they've made their mistake, but they've become better people after that. I've seen this with characters like Lelouch, even Griffith, someone who abandoned his humanity, Guts, Dr. Tenma, Batman. Again, whatever human character you want to kind of fill in the blank here. They have moments where they've messed up, where they've done something that they would consider morally incorrect. They go through a period of self-hatred, self-doubt, guilt, and then they rise above it. They become stronger, and they do everything in their power to not make that same mistake again. Because the reality of it is no matter what we do as people, no matter what that human character does as a person, their imperfections will always be there. Now, to switch to a real life example that I think can perfectly fit to a fictional example is think of the concept of anger, and how anger can be used to be very destructive, but could also be used and channeled to be some of the most powerful fuel you could ever experience as a person. This thing, this character flaw, connects to a lot of the other points that I've talked about here. But using the example of the emotion of anger, like I said, it could be either used for something of negative or positive impact for your character, which would determine the route the rest of the story might take, or the rest of this arc will take, which again creates a conflict that is personal, devoid of the grand narrative, but will affect the grand narrative of the story. So adding to all of this, it's very important that you make it personal. That's why we're attracted to these characters, because that's what the relatability does. That's what the conflict does. That's what the idea of imperfection, choice, struggling against fate, all of it. All of this is stuff that we can personally feel and connect to. So when you're writing a human character, don't just think of the major plot of your story, but think about the little individual plots, the personal plots for this character that will affect how your character reacts and acts within this plot. Essentially the themes. What is the message you're trying to communicate behind this human character? Like I said, even though you don't want to just condense your character into one thing, and I think you want to tackle as many emotions as possible when trying to portray someone who's human, when it comes to a character and when it comes to a story, you still want themes to be evident. But I'd say it's pretty straightforward here. If you're going for someone who you want to be relatable and human, make one of the major themes of their character humanity, and all of the things that comes along with that. Now, all because you are writing a human character, I don't think means that they have to constantly question their purpose in the world and all of that stuff. Stuff that we as people come to question at certain points in our lives. It all depends on whether that's one of the themes that's actually being tackled within your story. And so, mind you, this is gonna sound really dumb, but I hope the simplicity in what I'm about to say here kind of gets the message through. Make them human. Make them vulnerable. Give them struggles. Give them imperfections, but also qualities that we can admire. There's a lot of people out there with amazing qualities that we look up to all the time. I would say just really try to balance that out. Put that character in a position, especially if it's a long-running series, to where they're able to show that they're more than just one thing. They're more than just the optimistic, bright and shiny hero, and they're more than just the dark, brooding badass. There's nothing wrong with either of those. But the idea of a human character is balance. Presenting as much of their humanity as possible to the audience. Heck, you might even give them a moment where they could reject their humanity. No, it's not a JoJo reference. Point is that they're still gonna hold on to it, because that's what's meaningful to them. Make them somebody that we can admire truly, but also make them somebody we can question morally at times. So in conclusion, just read Berserk Vagabond and Pun Pun. This has been The Masked Man. Hope everyone has a blessed rest of the day, and peace.